Here's a concept that will change the way that you sell and the way that you live your life. It's this realization that in the sales process, in marketing, in life, you're never selling a product or a service. You're selling your method. So what does that mean? There are many ways to get to the top of a mountain, and people will always bet on the horse they believe has the highest chance of getting them there. So I want you to think about it like this. There are many different methods. There are many different ways to achieve a desired outcome for the prospect. Let's take, for example, a travel. Okay, you want to go traveling for a month. You can go on a cruise, you can stay in a hostel, you can stay in a hotel, you can do a bike camp trip, whatever. These are all different methods, but they all achieve the same desired outcome for the prospect, which is to travel. So you have to understand you're not competing on the sale, you're competing for the belief in your method. And what we're going to get into and what you need to understand is how do we actually start to understand and discover the internal conscious and subconscious beliefs that the prospect has around your method, and do they have positive associations or negative associations? Because if they don't believe internally, or they have a negative association with our proposed method of helping them get to where they want to get to, their desired outcome, to solve their problems, they won't buy. They won't buy. And sometimes prospects don't even realize that they have these subconscious beliefs and these negative associations with the methods that we're proposing to solve their problem. So let's get into it. So at the top we got grow my business revenue and increase sales. That is the desired goal for the prospect. That's what they want. Below, this is what I was talking about. When you start to understand that these are all different methods of achieving the higher goal. Email marketing, no mate, cold calling. It's all about personal brand. Outbound's gonna die. You know, you've got to run meta ads. You know, personal brand, AI is taking over that. Nah, don't worry about all of that. Come to my workshop and, you know, you learn the source. You see how we're all competing and all selling, all persuading, all marketing ourselves on the method. This is the desired outcome. This is the promise. This is what the prospect wants. This is what starts to gauge their interest and their desire. So, conscious beliefs around email marketing might be, no, I tried email marketing and it didn't work. Okay, well, they've got a negative connotation, a negative association with email marketing. Maybe they don't know, but they have a subconscious negative belief around cold calling. You know, when you start to dig into why they don't do cold calling, they might start to realize, well, you know, I just don't I don't like to be annoyed by my clients. I don't like to be cold called, so, you know, I don't want to do it to other people. This is something they never thought about, but when you start to question them, you realize that this is a subconscious belief that they hold around cold calling. So going back to what we were saying, so from past and current experiences, prospects will have conscious and subconscious beliefs on the different ways to get to their future goal. So go traveling for a month during the summer. Lovely, that would be beautiful. These are the different methods. Cruise, come on a cruise. Cruise ain't for old people. You know, there's young cruises now, there's cool cruises, there's party cruises, there's, I don't know, probably a reading cruise for over 21-year-olds, whatever. Stay in hostels or stay in a hotel. You don't want to stay in a hostel, it's dirty. You don't want to stay in a hotel, it's boring and expensive. You know, go on a bike camping. You don't want to stay in a hotel and just sit down all day. You sit down at work all day. You know, you want to be active. You want to go out into nature and do bike camping, a combination. You know, you want to be on a group tour. You don't want to be alone, you know, in a hotel or on a bike camping trip. You know, we do everything for you so you don't have to stress. Go on a group tour. and you've got the train pass as well, so you can travel to all of these different beautiful cities, whatever. You start to see how we're constantly being primed and sold on the method of doing something. And I think it's really important because you can start to understand and you start to break down, well, what's my method? So that's the first key thing I want you to understand, that there are many ways at the top of the mountain, but we have to make sure that the horse that we're offering someone to ride and get on has a good bloody well chance compared to the other horses of winning that race and getting that prospect to that goal. Okay? So now you've got that understood, don't bloody leave the video because this is the most important part. So this is the hard thing, the shit thing, let's say, about beliefs are, it's bloody hard to change. They're really hard to change. That's why therapies are, I don't know, psychology, all of these things are, because they're in our makeup, it's hard to change beliefs. So just quickly, what people think. I'm helping people online build a personal brand. This is a big one today. A personal brand will help you make more dosh, wonga, cash, revenue, whatever. But actually, what's a much better approach is why personal brand is the best way to achieve greater revenue in your business. Why? I want to focus. Why? How do I persuade? How do I convince? It has a negative word. That personal brand is the right way to achieve greater revenue compared to email marketing, compared to cold calling, compared to ads. And you start to hear it in people who are really good at marketing. This is the language they use. So now that we understand that, we need to actually get into the questions. So why do we ask this? Where are we? Let's go down. So this will tell you about every other method they've already tried. That's what we're trying to understand. We're trying to understand their beliefs. I don't want you to read the other stuff. So let me push it down here because it might be a bit distracting. Sorry, I'm not an expert on Miro. We want to understand their beliefs around methods, okay? Because when we start to understand their beliefs around our method and certain methods, we can start to understand, is there any chance this prospect's going to buy? Is there any chance? So this is elite level sales stuff. This is elite level questioning, and this is why the discovery call is so important. We need to question their beliefs. We need to ask questions that allows them to discover and express to us not only their conscious beliefs, but their subconscious beliefs, just like a therapist would. So, questions to understand their beliefs around methods. Why? Without understanding their current beliefs around the method we're proposing, we don't know if they have a positive or negative association with our method. They're never going to buy if they have a negative association, which I'm going to get into. Uncovering subconscious beliefs through questioning during the discovery call is what takes you to elite level. This is what takes you to elite level. And I'm going to explain to you why it takes you to elite level. So, these are the questions. What have you currently tried to solve this? Help me understand, why you believe that didn't work. What have you already tried to increase your revenue within the business? I've tried email marketing. Okay, help me understand, why don't you believe that? Why do you believe that didn't work? If you're selling email marketing and you ask that question and they say, email marketing doesn't work, we have two options. We can accept that as their belief and they're never going to buy email marketing services from us, or we can question that. Why? I understand that you say that email marketing doesn't work. It's obviously quite a broad statement. What makes you believe that? Okay. And why do you believe, Mr. Prospect, that other people actually have success with email marketing, but you didn't? And then we start to understand, well, I didn't know how to do it. I tried it myself and it didn't work. Okay, well, can I be honest with you? Have you completely closed yourself off to the idea that email marketing could be a viable option to help you increase revenue within the business? Because if you've completely closed yourself off, that's absolutely fine, but there's no point us continuing the call, Mr. Prospect, just because, that's what we do. So we're starting to really understand their beliefs around the method. Is there a particular reason you're considering this as an option? Let's say we sell personal branding. Yeah, we help businesses with personal branding. Is there a particular reason that you're considering now to be the right time to start your personal brand? And how long have you considered this as a practical solution? And why personal brand? We spend so much money on ads and our cost to acquire a client has gone up. And we're seeing our competitors are doing personal brand. Okay, I understand that. And, how long have you been considering this? Yeah, I understand that. So do you believe personal branding is sort of the best move now to actually achieve this goal? Yes, I do. Okay, perfect. We start to understand, does the prospect have a positive or a negative association with what we do? So what you have to do is you have to understand what your method is, and then you have to understand these questions. And you have to be a skill. There's a skill in it, okay? There's not just a black and white answer when it comes to this sort of stuff. What does that mean? What that means is if you're selling one method and they're talking shit about your method, you got two options. They ain't going to buy because they don't trust your method, or you challenge their internal beliefs and you try and overcome their internal association with your method. You also have to kill the idea of the other methods that they have in their head, and you have to uncover what they are. Let's go back to our example of beliefs grow my business revenue and increase sales. So let's say you're running meta ads. You're on the call with a prospect and the prospect's saying, I don't know whether to grow a personal brand, do email marketing, or run meta ads. Yeah, I understand. Okay. Well, what's your warmest inclination towards, or what do you feel is, most likely to actually grow your business revenue? I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about personal brand. Okay, I understand. And help me understand, have you sort of taken any action towards, growing a personal brand? No, I haven't. Okay. And, what's more important for you? Is it kind of just getting revenue into the business as soon as possible? Or are you looking to kind of, play the long game, 2-3 years? What's the business goals today? We need to get revenue in the door. Okay. Do you believe that, growing a personal brand could get you the revenue that you want to get within the next month or two? Because, growing a personal brand takes years. Yeah, I haven't really thought about that. Okay. And what about meta ads? If we got the copyright, which we've done for Dave here, yeah. And, what about meta ads? What's your attraction towards meta ads? Well, John, my business partner, is running ads for his other business and he just gets, business through the door straight away. Okay. So is it fair to say that meta ads would actually get you business through the door quicker rather than running a personal brand? Yeah, probably. Okay. And is that what you want? Yes. Boom. We're killing the personal brand option. I'm not saying a personal brand's a bad option. It's a great long-term play, but we all know that it's not a quick play. So maybe that was a bit deep. Maybe I went off a bit of a tangent, but I want you to understand that we're focusing on the method and we got to find out what are their internal beliefs around the other methods. We got to really get buy-in and commitment that they believe in our method. And we have to slowly kill the other methods and show the prospect, let them self-discover why those aren't better options than R1. So this is the final part, why it's so important. I'm going to tell you why. So this is just a quick one. So why is this so important? Understand this, please. If you take, no, actually no, because I like the method thing. If you take the third thing from this video, it's this one. Every objection and reason prospects don't buy boils down, comes down to, is due to, the reasons are these three major things. Lack of trust in yourself as a seller. Maybe you got bad energy. Maybe you just don't believe in yourself or your product or your service. They don't trust your company. There's negative reviews. They don't really know much about you. Or they don't have trust in their ability. And most of the times, it's all three. Okay? Most of the times, it's all three. So when you get a budget objection, well, if they really believe that it would work, it's normally because they don't trust. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it, but every objection and reason prospects don't buy boils down to three major things. Lack of trust in yourself as the seller, lack of trust in your company, and lack of trust in their ability. And when I say your company, what am I saying? I'm saying a lack of trust in the method that you're proposing. So any doubt they have in the method we're proposing in actually achieving their desired outcome will result in them not buying. They won't buy as they have doubt. And doubt is the opposite of trust. Okay? So, prospects will only buy when they trust you, your company, your method, and themselves to actually get the results. How do we know if they have doubt? Because how do we know if they trust our method? We do everything I've just bloody told you. We find out what was built, what's their subconscious and conscious beliefs that have been built from their past and current experiences. So that's the takeaway. The takeaway is every single person, consciously or unconsciously, is convincing, persuading, and portraying to the other person, to the prospect, that their method is the reason. So this is the key concept you have to understand. You're receiving constant persuasion, priming, convincing that you should choose this company's method to get to your dream outcome, to get to your desired goal. And I want you to understand, if you're marketing for your own product or service, if you sell for your own product or service, or let's say you're a rep, you need to understand, what is my method that I'm proposing? What are the internal beliefs that we can break through marketing, or we can uncover through masterful questions in our discovery call? And how is the association with our method in the prospect's mind? Because we have two options. They have extremely negative associations around our method that we're proposing, and they're never going to buy. Or the second method is they have a negative association or a positive association, which we continue to prime, continue to work, continue to uncover, and we start to put a positive correlation between where they want to get to, our proposed way of doing it, and their internal beliefs. Okay, maybe I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but I do believe that this is a big unlock. And I think you should stop squeezing objection handling and all of these different things which don't matter, and squeeze your method. How do we make our method so undeniably valuable, so much conviction that if the prospect just does what we tell them to do, they will see results? Guaranteed. Okay? That conviction, that proof, that conviction in your method, because you know it works, No amount of marketing, no amount of objection handling will be able to portray that level of conviction to your prospect. So I want you to understand, we're only ever selling people on the method. We need to understand what are their associations with the method we're proposing. So remember, people bet on the horse that they have the biggest belief in. Thank you very much.